Alright, in this video I'm going to cover a quick tutorial, hopefully a quick tutorial, on two different ways you can link existing tables in Airtable. So if you're new to this channel, my name is Tom. I cover different lessons and tricks and tools as a freelance consultant slash entrepreneur. So if that's something of interest to you, consider subscribing. So let's go ahead and hop right into this tutorial. So what I'm showing here is a template that I've created for this particular tutorial, and we're going to go and use a scenario of business operations profit and loss. Right? I figured this is the best way to kind of demonstrate how to properly link tables. So let's cover the basics here of what this database looks like. So we have our revenue. So pretty basic. We have all of our transactions, the type of businesses that generate those transactions, and the total revenue for the days. Pretty straightforward. So we have one table, nothing's linked. Our next one is operating expenses. So here's a quick template of all the different operating expenses, the categories, the date that they were paid out, and the amount of those bills, and I just put generic, Laura Ipsum notes, just to kind of show you a kind of like a semi-real example of what it will look like. So clearly we have our revenue and our operating expenses. So you could get your profit and loss. And then we have another table here that shows the business. So here is just a list of our businesses. So with that said, it's just one of those things where if you happen to have multiple businesses, this is a good way to have a bird's eye view across all your businesses. So pretty simple. And all three of these tables are not linked. So let's cover the very first method. So let's look at our revenue. So right now I manually typed in our different businesses. So just for reference purposes, I'm going to go ahead and create another field. And this would be businesses. And I'm going to put a little asterisk to show that this is like a different field because you can't have the same name for two different fields. And here we're going to go and create a link to another record. We're going to link to our businesses. And then we're going to think about this where can you have revenue tied to multiple businesses? In this case, not really. So every transaction is going to be uniquely tied to a business. So we don't want to link it to multiple businesses. It's just one transaction, one business. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. So that way it's a one-to-one relationship. So I'm going to hit save. So now I'm going to go try it, match this up. So now we have this table that lists out our businesses. This should be exactly how it's been set up in our business table. So we're going to go ahead and select business 1 to match with business 1. And I'm just going to go ahead and select the rest. So business 2, then we've got business 3, and then so forth. So essentially I just kind of repeat it. So what I'm going to do is going to go ahead and highlight these three fields, copy it, and then paste it using some shortcuts, Control C and Control V. All right. So essentially think of it this way. We now have created a relationship between revenue and business. And as you can tell, when I go to the business tab, it has the revenue relationship linked here, auto-populated. It's what Airtable does. So what we're going to go do is go back to revenue. And I can simply hide this or delete it. But right now, because the whole purpose of creating this relationship is to replace this. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click and delete this and move this over. So now we have our businesses all tied and linked. So that's our first way. So let's go ahead and talk about the second way of making a linked table. So let's go ahead and go to operating expenses. So operating expenses, I have a series of categories. Let's say you start to enter these categories, you're pretty consistent with the naming convention, and you want to create a table. Let's say you want to do a summary. You want to get a breakdown of all the categories, an entirely separate table. And I'll cover really quickly why you wouldn't want to do that once we create this relationship. So you can simply create the table by right-clicking on the category because now it's a text and say customize field type. And then what you want to do is go to link to another record. And then instead of selecting an existing table, you just create a new table. And by doing so, you can say allow linking to multiple records. So here you want to say yes or no, depending on how you want to set this up, because you want to have a one-to-many relationship or many-to-many relationship. But in this case, I want to allow kind of a one-to-one relationship for every description is tied to a particular category, right? You can't have a description that is tied to multiple categories, but you can. But in this case here, I'm going to create a one-to-one relationship once again. Hit save. And it's going to ask you to convert because it's already a text. I'm going to go ahead and convert. And now all of a sudden, you can see how it's all kind of have this little shaded area. That means a relationship has been established from another table. And you notice that category has been created. So let's go ahead and look at the category table. And there you go. Now it automatically created the name of the categories and tells you of the operating expenses. Again, the unique IDs, when you talk about the first column that I covered in my previous tutorial, where the first column is your primary key. So you'll see here it says Adobe Creative Cloud. You go to category, you can see Adobe Creative Cloud as the key under the operating expenses table. So a relationship has been established. So by doing that, that is your second way of creating a linked table. So you can do it real time by right-clicking on it and create a new table, or create a brand new relationship as we did in the very first example with revenue. So the question here, why would we want to do this? So let's go do this first. I want to capture our businesses because now we've already created a relationship with the business on the revenue table. And let's first say for some reason you want to get an overview of all the revenue that rolls up to that business, right? The first way you could do is basically create a view called Group by Business, which I've already done. And where you grouped it by the business, where you could go ahead and group, select a group, and then by business name. And there you have it. This is one way of showing by business how much revenue you've generated overall across each business. And then you could always collapse it all and see it at a single line view. Now similarly, let's say you don't need all this detail and you want something that's more of a dashboard view. Let's go ahead and create and replicate this. So let's go ahead to the business table here and add another record or field. And let's call it I'm going to call it a roll-up. This is going to be your total revenue, okay? Now, this is just for tutorial purposes, but I just want to indicate that this is going to be a roll-up feature. I'm going to say roll-up. And then here, it already knows it's tied to the revenue table. So it's already selected that for me. And then you'll select amount. And by selecting amount, I'm basically saying, let's go ahead and do a sum. I want to add up all the revenue for each particular business name. So let's go ahead and hit, actually no, before I save it, let's go ahead and change the formatting. I always forget to do this, but let's make it into a currency format. Hit save. And there you have it. So let's go ahead and validate this. So business one has $6,000 in total revenue. Then you have 12 and 18 respectively. Let's go to revenue. 6, 12, 18. There we go. Completely accurate. We're good to go. So this is way we can just hide this field here, revenue, to make it cleaner, because I know that's what it's being linked to. And now we have a nice single view, real-time data, where we can just look here and see how much is each business generating in total revenue. And this will be real time. So now the next thing we want to do is do this exact same thing for category. So category, as we know, is tied to operating expenses. Let's say you want to do a roll-up of all your operating expenses based on category. Similarly, we can create a view called by category, which I've already done here, and it's already grouped by your category. What's nice about it is it tells you about all your different category spend overall. Let's go ahead and collapse this all. And you can see line by line what is the total amount of each category that you've been spending. And clearly you can see the details of that spend. Now let's go ahead and do something very similar where you want to roll up the data. So let's go ahead and go to the category and do the exact same thing where we go here and say roll up operating expense. Actually, let's call it total. Total operating expense. Do a roll up, and then it's already tied to operating expense table. So let's again find amount, do a sum. Hit save. Oh, there we go. I forgot to do the formatting. Go back to format. I double click on the customization, go to currency, save. There you have it. So let's go ahead and look at apps, software, and web services at $62.06. Go back to operating expenses, and there we go. It matches $62.06. So we're good there. So I can hide this field. Now we have a single view. It's real time. As we update our operating expenses, this will update as well too. Gives you a rolling total. But here's the beauty part. Let's go ahead and look at our business. So we have our total revenue. Let's capture our total expenses, right? So how do we do that? So this is going to be the challenge. So in our operating expenses, we have to create some kind of relationship between the business and the expenses to come up with our profit and loss. So again, going back to our operating expenses, let's go to the main view here. As you can tell, nothing here is tied to our business. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a relationship, do an exact same thing we did with category, except now I'm going to go and create a relationship by inserting a column to the left of this field and say business. Do a link to another record, and I'm going to select the business table, and then I'm going to make it one-to-one again. Hit save. All right, so now I've created another table association with the operating expenses. So let's go ahead and pick our businesses. So I'm going to completely just randomly going to pick the first three just for time's sake, and I'm going to copy all three and paste it across the board. And then the last one is kind of odd number, so let's go with business one. Okay, so we've already created an association between this expense with this business. So let's go ahead and go back to the business. And as you can tell, where is the automated link has gone with that relationship? Well, under hidden fields, you notice there's two now. And it actually knows that you hid the relationship with revenue. It did the same thing with operating expenses. So I can always toggle it, and it will show my operating expenses here and then my revenue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hide these two just because I want to keep things clean. And then go ahead and add a roll-up of the businesses and total expenses. So we have total revenue. So let's go do a roll-up of total expenses. And then we're going to do a roll-up. And then we're going to pick a table, which is we want to pick the operating expenses because now this table business is tied to two different tables. Let's go ahead and choose amount and then do a sum. And don't forget formatting. Let's make it into a currency and hit save. Now we got our total expenses. We got our total revenue based on our business. So let's go ahead and validate this. So business one service has $659.83. So let's go to operating expenses. And then because I don't have it by category, I can now have the ability to sort it by business. So let's go ahead and create a new view called by business. Group it by business. And there you have it. So let's go ahead and collapse it all as a single line view. And there we go, $659.83 for business one. Let's go back to the business, and it matches. So again, I know this is redundant, but if for some reason you want to see it in a more summary view, this is a good way to do it. And you can do calculations. The reason why you want to do it is you can do calculations between two different data sets. One here, you have a revenue table, and then you have your expense table. That's one of the main reasons you want to do this is to do the formula calculations. So they're great independently for those views, but this is a way to roll it up and do a summary view. So let's go ahead and do a profit and loss. So here we want to obviously take our revenue and then subtract the expenses from it. So let's go ahead and say net profit. Let's create this as net profit. And we're going to do a formula. And then what we're going to do is subtract. So we just have our roll up. I type in the word roll up because it knows that you're looking for this field. Total revenue minus, roll up again, total expenses. Make sure the formatting is a currency. Hit save. So there you go. There's your net profit. Technically, you could go negative. So I'm going to say net profit or loss. Let's go relabel that. to be more accurate. And there you have it. So it's telling me that we are at a profit. So again, this is just a great way to summarize data from two different tables. And what you have seen is two different ways of linking to tables, to existing tables. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. I want to make sure this was really quick and straightforward with a lot of the applications you see when it comes to creating links, relationships, and formulas, and how you really can take advantage of Airtable's relational database features. And this is why it's so much more powerful compared to other solutions and other tools you may use. So again, if you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And that's pretty much it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.